Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with video recaps. New videos about older videos, historical videos, videos from the archives, because we've done about 30 trillion of them. And so we need to, remind people sometimes where they are, what they're doing. And in this edition, we have 3 repertoire videos. Yes, repertoire, because that's the stuff that a lot of people are most interested in when they're looking to build a collection. And we begin with Beethoven's Fifth. Oh, God! Yeah, Beethoven's Fifth is difficult. It's difficult because there are like 1,000 recordings of it, and I'm not exaggerating, and I try and reduce it to like the best or the worst, as the case may be, the best like dozen or so. Sometimes I've gone as high as I think 20. But really, it's impossible to keep track of all that stuff. There was a time in the history of record reviewing where we had our little Schwann catalog and it had the list of things. And even with Beethoven's Fifth, in print at any one time, there were a few dozen, and we knew them. We all knew what they were. There was a dialogue. There was a consensus as to what the best ones were and what was available. And so we worked from that. And it was manageable, somewhat manageable. Then I remember my good friend Christophe Huss, who is the music critic for Le Devoir in Montreal. And at that time, he was running a Repertoire magazine in Paris, in France. And he used to do blind listening sessions with works like that. And one of the pieces he did was Beethoven's Fifth. And I think they listened to, I don't know, several hundred recordings of them to try and figure out what the best one was. But even with a team of people and several hundred recordings, it's impossible to remember everything that you've just heard, keep it all straight, narrow it down. I mean, really, it's just crazy. So what you wind up doing is, even if you've heard most of them, is you pull out the ones that you think are worthwhile, you forget about the rest of them, and hopefully over time, your views of them will solidify in such a way that you can make a list which is useful for most collectors. And that's what I tried to do in the case of Beethoven's Fifth. And of course, as soon as I do the list, everyone says, well, you forgot this, you forgot that. I didn't forget anything. I just didn't talk about everything because it isn't physically possible. And I just love the way that people insist that I forgot something because it's not the one they have or the one that they like. Well, that's just too damn bad, isn't it? Because we all have to operate from the knowledge that we have. And that's what I tried to do with these repertoire lists. So that's the first one. The second one is Berlioz, the Symphonie Fantastique, one of those pieces that almost always misfires. It's very hard to find great recordings of the Symphonie Fantastique because Berlioz is so tricky. He's so strange and so quirky, and he's such an odd combination of sort of classical severity on the one hand and insane, romantic, completely wild, improvisational lunacy on the other hand. And to be able to do both of those things is really, really a special combination of qualities. And to keep the music from bogging down, because his music does have dead spots. And you have to know how to get past them. Once you get past them, you're in great shape. I mean, it's not necessarily Berlioz's fault if so many performances of his works are boring. But the Symphonie Fantastique is one of those pieces where all the exciting stuff happens in the last couple of movements, for the most part. Doesn't mean there isn't wonderful music beforehand. I mean, the first movement has some rip-roaring stuff and the introduction of the idée fixe, which is wonderful. And then you've got the waltz, the ball, which I think is luscious and wonderful. The harps strumming around. But the slow movement, the scene in the country, that's a tough one because it's a portrait of desolation and it lasts like anywhere from 15 to 18 minutes. And getting through that is a project. If you're not really a Berlioz specialist, somebody who really knows how to make the music sing and grab our attention. The other two movements, of course, the March to the Scaffold and the Witches' Sabbath, kind of take care of themselves. You just have to whip them up to a frenzy. They have to froth and steam and drip and drool, and. So I went through a whole bunch of Symphonie Fantastiques because everybody feels they have to record it. But not everybody records it well. And then last but not least, Tchaikovsky's Romeo and Juliet. And this was particularly interesting and I think enjoyable video for me to do because great Tchaikovsky conducting is a very, very rare thing these days. And I point that out in the video. You know, people are, they don't seem to have the emotional connection to that music, the willingness to just open up and let the steaming and passion and stuff like that just pour out the way that was second nature to most conductors really up until around the 1960s. And after that, it all seemed to evaporate, along with the period instrument movement when that came in, and minimalism and all these things that involve precision of rhythm and a sort of mechanical approach to the music, and a rigid perfectionism that precludes the kind of just emotional spontaneity that Tchaikovsky is known for. And so the great Romeo and Juliets are an object lesson in how to, retain that kind of passion that seems so lacking in so many performances today. So there they are for your enjoyment. Please have a look if you haven't seen them already, and have a look at the repertoire playlist, because there are almost, I think now, 500 videos in there covering most of the basic repertoire, both complete cycles and individual works, and all kinds of stuff. So you'll find a lot to, I think, enjoy and use in building your own music collection. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.